In 1983, in the heart of Lagos, Nigeria, a child is born with nothing, not even a name. Left in the rain beside trash bins, this boy should have died before sunrise. But fate had other plans, and they would not be kind. It is late at night behind a small private clinic in Lagos. Rain pounds the cracked concrete as a young woman struggles alone. No doctor. No family. No hope. She gives birth to a baby boy. For a moment, she stares at him, silent, afraid, empty. Then she removes her worn sweater, wraps the child tightly, and places him between two overflowing trash bins. She walks away. She never looks back. By morning, market women hear faint cries. The baby is cold, but alive. The police arrive and write just 3 words in a ledger. Unknown male child. The boy grows up in a government orphanage packed with forgotten children. Food is scarce. Love is non-existent. Caretakers punish more than they protect. Older boys steal from younger ones. The boy learns quickly. If you cry, no one comes. If you fight back, it gets worse. So he becomes quiet. Invisible. Years pass, and the city outside grows louder. At 10 years old, after a brutal beating from a caretaker, the boy runs. He doesn't know where he's going. He just knows he cannot stay. Lagos streets welcome him with hunger. He sleeps under abandoned buses. Eats leftovers from roadside sellers. Runs when footsteps follow him too closely. Some nights, he doesn't sleep at all. One evening, exhausted and starving, the boy collapses near a marketplace. Dark figures surround him. They are older boys, street-hardened, scarred, dangerous. Instead of helping him, they stare, calculating. One of them smiles. Not kindly. That night, the boy didn't die. But the child he once was, didn't survive either. Because these boys were not saviors. They were the iron dogs. And tomorrow, they would give him a new name. The streets didn't raise him with kindness. They raised him with rules. And that night, the boy learned the first one. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer alone. Dark shapes surrounded him. Older boys. Hard faces carved by hunger and violence. They stood in a loose circle, watching him the way hunters watch wounded prey. The boy tried to move, but his body felt weak. Days without food had drained him. One of the boys stepped forward. He had a shaved head, a scar carved above his left eyebrow, and eyes that carried no curiosity, only calculation. He looked the boy up and down like an object that needed a decision. He didn't ask the boy's name. He didn't ask where he came from. Instead, he asked a question that mattered more on the streets. Can you be loyal? The boy didn't answer. He was too hungry to think. Someone tossed him bread. Dry. Hard. But real. The boy grabbed it and ate like it might disappear. Crumbs fell onto the ground, and no one laughed. On the streets, hunger was understood. That was the moment the choice was made for him. He didn't join them with words. He joined them with silence. They told him the rules slowly, like laws carved into stone. Don't steal from your own. Don't talk to police. Don't run when things get ugly. And most important of all, don't feel. Feelings got you killed. That night, they gave him a name. They called him Ghost. Because he didn't talk. Because he moved quietly. Because children like him disappeared every day. Ghost learned fast. Too fast. He learned how to slip through traffic while drivers argued. How to lift wallets without fingers trembling. How to disappear into crowds when danger came running. Pain became routine. Fear became background noise. If he failed, he was beaten. If he succeeded, he ate. That was the balance. One night, everything went wrong. A theft that should have been easy turned loud. A man noticed. He fought back. The air changed. The gun froze. The leader looked at Ghost. His eyes said everything. If you don't act, you're done. The moment stretched. Then the screen fades. Later, Ghost ran. Not from the police. Not from the gang. From himself. His hands shook as he disappeared into the darkness, heart pounding, breath broken. Something inside him cracked that night, and it never fully healed. Years passed. The boy grew taller. Harder. Colder. The softness left his face. The streets no longer scared him. They recognized him. By his early teens, Ghost moved with confidence. Other boys watched him carefully. Some followed him. Some feared him. The child who once slept under buses was gone. In his place stood someone the streets respected. But respect on the street comes with a price. And one day soon, someone would challenge everything Ghost had become. Because even the hardest men are tested. And Ghost's real test was still coming. By the early 1990s, Ghost had become exactly what the streets of Lagos trained him to be. Silent. Efficient. Feared. He moved through the city like a shadow, knowing which roads to avoid, which faces to remember, and which rules never to break. Hunger no longer controlled him. Fear no longer slowed him down. But the streets had not taught him how to live. They had only taught him how to survive. One afternoon, something unusual caught Ghost's attention. On a crumbling concrete wall deep inside Iron Dog's territory, color appeared where there had only been dust and decay. Not graffiti. Not gun markings. A painting. A young woman stood there, brush in hand, lost in her work. She wore simple clothes stained with paint, her hair pulled back, her focus unbroken by the danger around her. This was not a place for art. The gang noticed too. Orders came quickly and without emotion. She was not paying respect. She was not afraid. She had to be dealt with. Ghost approached her as the sun began to sink behind the buildings. His footsteps were quiet, but she heard him anyway. She turned and looked at him. Not with fear. Not with anger. With curiosity. It unsettled him. He told her she shouldn't be there. His voice was low, practiced, empty of feeling. She smiled slightly and asked him a question no one had ever asked before. What do you see when you look at this wall? Ghost didn't answer. Because no one had ever asked him what he saw, only what he could take. Another gang member arrived. Louder. Rougher. Impatient. He reached for her. And Ghost moved. Instinct took over before thought. He stepped between them, pushing the other boy back. For a moment, the world froze. Ghost had crossed the line. The girl stared at him, shocked but unharmed. The other gang member backed off, confused, angry, but unwilling to challenge him. That night, Ghost walked away shaken. He didn't understand what he had done. Only that something inside him had refused to stay quiet. Over the next few days, he returned to the wall. Not to threaten her. Not to watch her. To stand there. She spoke to him as if he were human. Not a street boy. Not a criminal. She told him her name was Maya. She talked about colors, about stories, about how walls remembered pain and could also remember hope. One evening, she placed a paintbrush in his hand. Ghost didn't know how to hold it. His fingers, trained for theft and violence, trembled around something meant to create. She didn't laugh. She didn't correct him. She simply waited. For the first time in his life, Ghost felt something unfamiliar. Peace. Leaving the Iron Dogs was not easy. When Ghost told them he was done, they laughed. Then they beat him. Fists. Boots. Warnings carved into flesh. They left him bleeding in an alley, believing the lesson was enough. Maya found him. She didn't scream. She didn't ask questions. She stayed. As he healed, Ghost made a decision. The name they gave him belonged to the streets. He chose a new one. Eli. A name that did not carry blood. Leaving the streets did not happen all at once. For Eli, it happened slowly, painfully, one decision at a time. The scars on his body healed faster than the scars in his mind. Loud noises still made him flinch. Crowded streets still set his heart racing. The iron dogs were gone from his daily life, but they lived on in his memory. Maya stayed. She didn't try to fix him. She didn't ask him to explain his past. She simply believed he could become more than it. Eli worked wherever he could. Construction sites. Painting houses. Carrying cement under the hot Lagos sun. Honest work felt heavier than crime, but lighter on his conscience. At night, he painted. At first, his hands were clumsy. His lines unsure. But his walls spoke truth. They told stories of boys forgotten by the city, of hunger, of fear, of survival. People stopped to watch. Then they started to talk. By the mid-1990s, Eli's murals had become familiar across parts of Lagos. They weren't beautiful in the traditional sense, but they were honest. And honesty, in a city full of noise, stood out. Maya and Eli married quietly. No big ceremony. No expensive clothes. Just two people choosing each other. Time passed. They built a home filled with laughter, arguments, music, and late-night conversations. One child became two. Two became three. Eli watched his children sleep and felt a fear deeper than any he had known on the streets, the fear of losing something precious. Success followed, slowly and carefully. Eli opened a small community art space. Then another. He hired boys who reminded him of himself, quiet, angry, lost. He paid them fairly. He taught them patience. He taught them how to turn pain into color. For the first time, Eli belonged somewhere. But the past does not disappear just because you stop running from it. One evening, a familiar face appeared across the street. Older. Harder. Watching. An iron dog. Eli felt it immediately. That old pressure in his chest. That warning his body never forgot. News spread quickly through the streets. One of the old gang members had been arrested. And in exchange for his freedom, he was talking. Names were being written down. Stories were being remembered. And Eli's name, his old name, was among them. The past didn't arrive loudly. It came in whispers. A phone call that ended too quickly. A stranger standing too long across the street. A familiar tension tightening in Eli's chest. He had spent years building a life that felt real. A home filled with children's voices. Walls covered in color instead of blood. A name that meant something good. But the streets remember everything. The police came one morning while the city was still waking up. They were calm. Respectful. They didn't need to explain much. Eli already understood. Old crimes had been reopened. A former iron dog had decided his own freedom was worth other people's truths. Eli sat with Maya that night in silence. Their children slept in the next room, unaware of how fragile their world had become. Maya asked only one question. "Are you going to run?" Eli shook his head. He had run his whole life. This time, he would stand still. When Eli told the truth, he didn't dress it up. He didn't blame the streets or his childhood. He spoke plainly about the things he had done and the choices he had made. Some people were shocked. Others were not. The court sentenced him to prison. Not because he was still a criminal, but because he once was. Prison took years from Eli, but it did not take his purpose. Inside, he taught other men how to paint. How to sit with their thoughts. How to imagine a future that didn't repeat the past. Time passed slowly. Letters from his children arrived, each one a reminder of what waited beyond the walls. When Eli was released, he stepped back into a city that had changed, and a family that had not stopped loving him. His children ran into his arms. Maya cried quietly against his chest. The murals were still there. Weathered. Cracked. But standing. Years later, people would walk past those walls without knowing the full story. They would only feel something they couldn't explain. And that was enough. Because the boy left beside trash bins in 1983 did not disappear. He survived. He changed. And when the past finally came home, he met it as a man.